Hello, welcome back to my campaign diary. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, just because in between sessions things have been a bit spotty. We've missed a couple of sessions every other week for the last month or so now. Just things getting in the way, you know, life as usual. So, what's been happening in the game? The last session was a little bit different as far as most of the sessions have gone. So if you remember, our party had been within this crypt and then fought a bunch of ghouls. They then left the crypt, left the church and headed back to town, and we picked up after a couple of days. That's a train. Picked up after a couple of days with the party having rested up. Now they had two things sort of on the agenda, well actually three, but two main ones that they were thinking about. One of them is to go to some mushroom caves, and the other is to go to Amberside Cottage, which Clifton Caldwell said was an old building, a cottage which is within his lands, and that he will allow them to purchase it and purchase the deed from him so that they have their own place to stay. However, he did warn them that it's a little bit worse for wear. So the party headed down southwards into this the Tri-Peaks region. So this is an area where there's like three mountains that surround lots of forests and like the valley, and that's actually where Clifton Caldwell's castle is. So they make their way up and speak with Clifton, who's currently having his place renovated, as it's been about a week or so, I think, since they went through and cleared it for him. So he comes out and he's sort of dressed very finely and a little lazily, and he's speaking with maids and servants who are just going around and cleaning, sorting things, bringing stuff in that it's his delivery. He's moving in, and he is happy to see the party, has a quick chat with them, wanting to know if they're ready, and they decided that they're going to have a house viewing. So the session was pretty much the party going to flip the house, and they head to this old fallen down cottage. The walls are still standing, but the roof is caved in. All of the garden area is overgrown. There's a hill and a bit of a stream, so they're actually at the foot of one of the mountains of the Tri-Peak region, and there's a little bit of a stream that dribbles down surrounding the garden, but that is all overgrown. As I mentioned, roof had fallen in. The doors have been boarded up. They've just been broken down, so there's just planks across there, as well as all the windows. And the back northwest side of the house has a big cave in. So they have a look around. Clifton sort of sits there next to his horse, kind of leaning against the party's cart, puffing a pipe, whilst he chats with Blank, and they discuss, okay, we'll have a look around and we'll purchase it. As Frank goes and he starts looking at the garden, and the hill just by the garden, he decides that this is where he's gonna set up his stronghold. So halflings, they can create a stronghold. Most characters have to be level 9 to do it. Halflings can basically just set out and do it when they want. And what this means is they establish a shire, and then so their own little community, and halflings from all around will start coming in and living their sort of hobbit style. You're kind of just milling about, while Firth, our druid, he went through and started looking at like the flowers and things, picking up weeds. No one had actually gone into the house before they bought it. They sort of looked at the area and went, okay, it's a good size, and then they started planning on what they could do with it, bringing in construction, all that sort of stuff, fixing it up. So Blank discussed, and he tried to barter, but he wasn't able to get the price down anymore, and he purchased the cottage for 2,500 gold pieces. So, which is a fairly good deal for just a cottage. They then had to, especially for a stronghold as well. They then decided to make all their plans with how to improve this place, how to just firstly repairing it, and then what they would do along the line. And that was pretty much most of the session, was them sitting there like back and forth, chatting about oh, we've got these jewels that we can sell off, we've got all this gold here. They basically, everyone pulled together all of their cash and then divvied up how much they would have to spend, and they kind of made an account of, right, this is everything that we're going to spend on it. Frank's player had been deciding that he's thinking he's going to retire Frank, actually. That, you know, he's been on this adventure, he's gone and done these things, and the player wants to just try something new. He actually wanted to try and play like a JoJo's character, so with like a stand, you know, so this sort of magic spiritual body that like pops out and fights alongside him / for him. And I showed him the kineticist, I think. So I got in the carcass crawlers here, and the kineticist is in one of these. It's in number 1. There you go, issue 1. And the way that this works, I'm just going to check up because I'm pretty sure I know how it is, but I could be a little bit wrong. The way it works is you have psionic powers, and you have a number of abilities that you can then or points that you can expend to use like ESP abilities. Yeah, so they get mental powers that they can expend every day, and they get a bunch of crazy stuff that they can pick from. So the player for Frank decided that the new kineticist character was kind of like Gandalf for the hobbits of where Frank and Gumball were from, where the Grumbly family was from. And so this kind of, it was like the Gandalf figure for them, and he is now going to come and visit Frank, and that's how he's going to be introduced to the party. So Frank is actually settling down here at their new cottage. So yeah, they're all sort of looking around, they were divvying up some money, and I said, well, what is everyone doing? Your characters, are they just sort of standing around chatting about this? He said, well, we will have a look inside. So they walked around, and obviously they couldn't get through the door unless they were to pull it off, but they did see that there's this hole in the side, so they went through there, and they noticed that the place, obviously it was covered in dust, the stove was covered in ash, there was a banner hanging above the stove, which showed a gauntlet gripping a vine that's covered in thorns. But yeah, it was all sort of bleached with sunlight, and yeah, the colour a bit drained and all tattered. There was a big beam in the middle of the room that had fallen down from the roof, and that was covered in long claw marks. And along the floor there was the bones of various herbivores, elk and elk and deer, things like that. And one patch of grass, a large kind of patch of grass, was all matted down. While the party was in the room looking at all this, they heard a big groan from behind them, and a grizzly bear has made its home here, and it was just returning out from being in the wilderness to its den, their cottage. So Frank, oh, that was a close one. Frank turned around, and he used his magic ring to create like a swarm of bees in front of the party, so then it would sort of alert the bear and scare it. So this bear, saw these bees, and it sort of stumbled back and then started running around, and they all sort of hid in the cottage. For a few moments, they heard the thumping of its heavy footfalls, and then they heard Clifton Caldwell scream out, and then their horses whinnying. So they decided to dash and run out of their cottage to go and see, Clifton Caldwell's being mauled. Turns out Clifton he spotted the bear as it came round, hopped on his own stallion that he was next to, and he just shot off. He left the party to be killed. While this bear had run forward, and the horse that they just had tied up was it was stuck, it was, bound, and so the bear had jumped and attacked it. So sadly, Yonkers the horse has been killed, or Yonkers the donkey has been killed. The party then, loosed a bunch of attacks, and they managed to actually take out the bear with Firth standing between the party and the bear and using his magic scroll to cast the protection from plants and animals, so the bear wouldn't be able to attack him, and he sort of stood there blocking the way, like a "you shall not pass" type thing. And then, arrows hit the bear and it managed to kill it. They decided they were going to skin this bear, maybe use it as a rug or put it up on the mantelpiece, something like that. It's their first fight in the area. However, Yonkers was dead, and that is actually where it came to the name of the place. So they were going to call it, because Frank is living here, while it is called Amberside Lodge, they want to eventually establish their own territory, and they've called it Frankfurt upon Yonkers. Frankfurt, as in Frank's Fort, and then upon Yonkers, because they've buried Yonkers underneath the cottage, and so they are literally living on top of Yonkers the horse. Or donkey, sorry. Yonkers the donkey. Doesn't matter now, he's dead now. Yeah. And so that was pretty much the session. The rest of it was just number counting and them doodling on a little bit of a map, and then looking at how much it would cost for them to repair the walls, the roofing, the doors, the windows and everything. And luckily they had enough. They are now very much low on cash. We sort of wrapped it up with everyone sort of saying goodbye to Frank, who is now going to become like the mayor of this sort of area. He's the guide, and he's going to just look after and tend to the cottage whilst everyone else is off away adventuring. Hopefully some farmhands, other halflings and the sort, come in to help out as well. And so we decided that it's going to be, about a month or so time skip between it, so everyone gets to do a little bit of stuff, decide what's going on, and the house is like fully repaired pretty much by the time that we all sort of pick up play again. And it also gives time for the kineticists to arrive in the area, and sort of we can have an introductory sort of session. The party's plans now, so they never actually got to go to the mushroom caves, so they decided next session they're going to go to that, and they've all leveled up as well. So they're all level 3 now from fighting the bear and sort of doing all this stuff. I decided, okay, here's your XP, you all get to level up. So Blank is level 3, sorry. The rest of the party is level 2. And that's pretty much all that happened. It wasn't really a long, it was a long session in the amount of time that it took to play, but the amount of events that happened, it was pretty short in scale. But it was fun, it was a bit different. One of the characters, Blank's player, sort of said like, "Oh, Matt's barely doing any DM in this session. Look at him. He's thinking how we've derailed the campaign." Because I was mostly just sat back, in my chair, like with the book in front of me. If they needed anything, I flicked through. Okay, yeah, this is this is that. This is what the area looks like. Just to give them a better description of things. Yeah. Or something else that they found as well is this cottage used to be the home of an adventurer of some sort. And whilst they were dusting it out and cleaning it, they found a notebook. And in this notebook, a journal really, it described the last days of a weary old adventurer who had once been sort of a warrior and fought this dark wizard. And now he's been sensing sort of the shadows returning. And his last lines were pointing them towards a dark tower in the east, past the Gulfen Mires and in the foothills of the Dawn Peak Mountains, which are basically the most eastern part of the map that they have. So they have another sort of marker there. So they've got two different things in Gulfen Mire / the Peaks. One of them being the Shadow Abbey that they'd found way back in, I think, the first cave that they went to. That was a treasure map there. And then this is basically another treasure map, but with some lore stuff attached to it. So yeah, that was the session in total. A little bit back and forth there, sorry, but hopefully you followed it through easy enough. It's going well, at least. We're all really enjoying it. Yeah, last session was a bit, like I say, for me, I was sat back a lot, and I don't see it as really derailing the campaign. I feel like this is kind of where the campaign is made, right? Everyone's setting out into their own and they're making big decisions. They're planning ahead and they're thinking about the game outside of it just being, oh, we'll go to this dungeon and kill this thing. They're making their own plans of what they want to do and sort of how to live in this fantasy world. And it's interesting to see the growth of them as players, going from like quite timid in a way and like asking me, oh, well, what can I do? What's this? What's that? To now having the confidence to pretty much say, no, you know what? We're going to establish ourselves in this town and we're going to make this our own territory. And eventually down the line, Plank was joking, saying eventually down the line, I want to declare war against the Baron of Brandmere, and we'll set it up in its own independent kingdom where we can rule the place. Which, yeah, that could be something. Having a home base as well, I think is great for them for storing loot. It also gives me something to play with where, if they've got some enemies, well, if they make enemies with armies and the sort, I know there's a lot of goblins in the mountains to the north of them that they want to go and maybe pillage and plunder the dungeons there. If that becomes a problem and some word gets out where they're living, you know, they're going to have to defend where they're living. It isn't really in Old School Essentials, but in the Five Torches Deep book, there is, well, a side supplement for Five Torches Deep. There's one about sort of supply and having your own stronghold, but it's more like a homestead, I believe, and you just hire hirelings to work on a farm and you produce supply, which is kind of like a reward system, like a value points thing in that game that you can like expend to craft items. And I was thinking I might take something like that, adapt it a little bit, so then their actual stronghold feels like it's got more of a purpose to it, rather than them just hiring people and then living there. If they want to turn it into something, as they were saying, you know, all of them like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, saying, well, we could just turn this D&D game into Animal Crossing, right? And we'll just bring villagers in and stuff, and then we do a little bit of farming, like plant our trees. Yeah, so that was the other thing that I'd forgotten, but now I've remembered. As always, thank you very much for watching. It's hopefully seeing you again. You know, it's been a week or two. I don't know how frequently we will be playing, as I think next session we're not going to be playing our regular time. So, yeah, maybe a little while in between. Hopefully I'll record some other videos on different things as well, as I wanted to try and stick at this just as a hobbyist kind of project. I'm quite enjoying it, you know, sticking with like, videography and just talking about TTRPGs. It's something that I love. Anyway, thank you for watching, and bye-bye.